As you probably heard, like a minute ago, I was asking David if he knew who Steve Irwin was. Do you personally know who that is?
Well, me personally representing this particular race, right? We have been on your planet to a degree, however, species-wise, us collectively, KALASK, right, have been to your planet, but it's not like we have personal direct contact with the individual, either telepathic or literally face to face, right?
Uh huh.
However, we can read from your so-called Akash, right, that this individual exists, somewhat what it's about, what it considered important, etc., what its actions were towards the particular members or larger species, right? And of course, the vessel we are aware of somewhat like a name, and subconsciously to some degree some pictures. That's about it.
Okay. Well, yeah. I mean, the only reason I bring him up is because like he's been kind of like a hero of mine like my whole life. You know, he had his own show about like alligators and crocodiles that like me and my friends would watch when I was a kid, and you know, whenever we would go swimming with alligators, like we would pretend like we were Steve Irwin. You know, we'd be like, "Oh, crikey, mate, there's a big croc right there," and you know, speaking his little Australian accent and all that. But like basically, he was all about like protecting alligators and crocodiles and like conserving wildlife. Um, like, did he have any past life relationships with the KALASK race?
Well, not with us as we referred earlier. We're not directly familiar with this person that he shared her. Yes, he had, or will have, or is having, you're aware of time frame, right? Realities where he's incarnated in the reptilian race himself, correct? Just like the vessel, obviously the vessel is us, and of course its incarnation in the kitty cat, right? Therefore, such a familiarity with beings on your Earth that are similar in species, right? Energy. However, in this case, obviously, individual particularly with reptilian, correct? So therefore, also its desire to preserve what is perhaps considered more, well, environmental, right? Those particular corrections are also very typical for us from your species. However, the individual was not necessarily aware of this during his lifetime. It's just that it was pulled in this direction.
Okay, so would you consider him to be like a star seed?
Well, your entire planet is more or less a star seed.
Okay.
It's just some individuals on your planet remember past, present, or future incarnations are words, and if it's relevant to their current incarnation, right?
Right, right.
So if a person on Earth had incarnations on Earth before, that's relevant to their current incarnation, they will likely more remember this than on another planet. For example, if somebody is working in big business, right, and he was already incarnated in another time or reality on your very own planet, right, if he was like the whatever you call it in your own English language, working at the king's court, right, being responsible for the finances, obviously would likely more remember such an incarnation than if he was a warrior on another star system, which is not directly relevant to his current incarnation and vice versa. Doesn't mean it wasn't there, but this person could not consider himself a star silver, but just consider himself a reincarnation of some person living at a king's court doing similar businesses, or of course by individuals having no past, present, future remembering at all because they have simply a materialistic, positivistic worldview where there's no room for such, right? So people consider themselves what you consider a star seed as simply those that are more inclined to acknowledge the reality of life in other worlds and the possibility to reincarnate from one planet to the other. It's not necessarily that they're more inclined to have those particular incarnations, just that they're more willing to accept and embrace such realities. And yes, of course, those that are open for the stars often have more incarnations of there than on Earth. But there's no distinct line that we would draw considering a person by such labels. But we also understand why in your current contemporary culture, some people like to ascribe such labels to themselves.
Okay. So like, can you like I don't know read from like the filing cabinet of his higher self why he like decided to die at such a young age? I mean, like when his two young, his two kids had just been born. Like, why did he choose to die so early?
Well, he was simply finished. his idea of what he wanted to accomplish in his lifetime concerning his work, to some degree what it was he wanted to experience, and of course, then pass on his genes, right?
Okay. Oh, yeah, that makes sense. Okay, well, like, I guess a final question.
Simple enough. It's usually when people die or pass on, even if some horrible accident or impairment just happens to them, it's always because on some level they're decided that's, well, that's enough for now.
Yeah, I mean, like, from my point of view, it kind of like, I think like dying early made him into like a martyr figure because like he's even more, his message is more popular today than it was like even when he was alive. So yeah, I mean, it kind of makes sense. But like, I guess the final question, like a few months ago, it was like, I don't know if it was his birthday or the anniversary of his death or something, but like the group, the People for Ethical Treatment of Animals, like they were tweeting that, Steve Irwin wasn't as great as people talk about him, and he used to like always annoy the animals because he would like jump on crocodiles and, to try to learn about them and, you know, catch them and bring them to zoos or whatever. So, and then like, people were, firing back at PETA saying, Steve was a great person. He loved crocodiles, he loved alligators, and he just wanted to help them and all that. And I was like thinking to myself, like, well, neither of you are in a position to speak for the alligators and crocodiles, but like I know somebody who is in a position to speak for crocodiles and alligators. So anyway, like, what do you, KALASK, think about like whether Steve Irwin was a good guy and he cared about the crocodiles, or was he just annoying to them?
Well, overall, obviously, in interspecies communication, there's usually some annoyance because there's some miscommunication in terms of, well, different species have different attitudes. You're well aware. For example, when we first connected to the vessel was in the position thinking we were harmful just because of the connection, right? Although some sentiments brought towards us from the middle of your species, but are not ill-intended, can be weird and sometimes, especially lighter aspects, which in this case perhaps do not necessarily exhibit by this particular individual you're referring to, right? Can be highly annoying. In this particular case, however, the individual is probably one of the least annoying individuals interacting with members of our species in larger terms.
Okay.
So correct, the individual was, at least from our perspective, doing more good than harm in terms of interspecies communication. Obviously, it's different from what the vessel is doing, communicating with beings such as us on a higher level than those beings that are more in an animalistic second dimensional incarnation, right? So it's hardly comparable. But overall, he was interacting with reptilian energy and from his human perspective, and as such, he was doing, from what we perceive, a good job, or at least doing, again, having a positive rather than a negative impact.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm glad to hear that.
Also, remember, interact with our species is usually more based on, well, matter of fact, open communication, right? You consider it perhaps tough to some degree.
Uh-huh.
Rough.
Right.
Or members perhaps that are coming at us for more airy, spiritual, secondary community, idea, sentiment, etc., not considering necessarily those particular groups you mentioned, but in general, are highly more annoying than those that are perhaps more upfront, speaking for our species in general.
Okay. All right, well...
Also
yeah,
the direction of the PETA people.
Yeah.